Is fostering dogs for me? How can I be a good dog owner?
Whether you're a seasoned pet parent or considering bringing a furry friend into your life, we've got you covered. Welcome to the Dog Lovers Podcast.
Brought to you by Canine Cupids.
I'm doing all right. I'm ready to talk about some dogs. My spouse and I have been doing dog fostering with a couple different places for going on about 14 years off and on. And when we were leaving and ready to move on from a different organization, we had heard about Canine Cupids, and we heard about like the types of dogs that they would take and where they would take them from. And since we lived in the Milwaukee area, like it was really important to us that we worked with a rescue that mostly pulled from Matic. That's the local animal control. They service, the entire county, high volume, and they take in all the stray animals. So we know there's always a need. And so it was really important to us to find a rescue that mostly pulled from there. And another thing we liked about Canine Cupids is they never shied away from tough cases. So they were well known for years as being the place for puppies that had severe mange. We would joke we were the mange baby place if you needed a place for a puppy. And lots of other rescues can do that, but we did it in pretty big volume. If we got the call, say, hey, we got a crusty little puppy here, we were like, bring him over. Same thing with dogs that had injuries, dogs that had skin conditions of other kinds, dogs that had medical issues. One of our fosters, one of my favorites, his name was Spooner. He was like a 10-year-old Schnauzer mix, just a little scruffy nugget of a thing. Okay. Mostly blind, and we found out pretty quickly he had pretty severe diabetes. But when I called up the director at the time and said, I really want to pull this dog, and she said, go for it if you're ready to do it. Like, she did not shy away. He ended up being what we'd call a hospice foster. So he was with us for over a year. We really never got his diabetes all the way under control, but I like to think that he had a really good quality of life with us. He was mostly blind, but had tons of personality, and it did not seem to bother him. Nice. I used to bring him in sometimes from playing with the other dogs, and he was this little guy. He'd go play with the biggest dog. He did not care. He'd come in all covered in slobber and panting and happy as could be. And so for a little dog that was obviously not feeling his best, and he was getting around in the world in a different way, not being able to see, he still had a really great quality of life. And even though he ended his journey with us, like, I would not have chosen any other option for him. I'm so glad that he got that chance and we got to spend that time with him. So Cupids and the leadership at the time made that happen. And they said, if you're ready to do it, we'll back you. And I always appreciated that. Part of being a foster family, a lot of times we'll describe it to people as, you need to provide the space, the love, the attention, the time. But Cupids will make sure you've got what you need to do that. So some foster families provide food for their fosters as their own choice in a way of their contributing to the group, but you can always either be reimbursed for it or it can be provided. My current foster is benefiting from a great donation we got from Stella and Chewy's, which is a local company. And he's doing really well on some of their food. They gave us a big donation. So when we had him, I said, you've got adult food. I'm going to feed him that. He's doing great on it.
Nice.
So, we always have that option. Medical care is 100% covered. By the rescue. So we've got several vets we work with closely in the area. All the shots are covered. The spay or neuter surgery, the heartworm test for the older dogs. We have them all on the monthly preventatives. My foster dog came out of the shelter, as many do, with an upper respiratory infection, a cold. Very common. Kind of like daycare, everybody gets a little sick. It's all in the air. Uh-huh. So he came out, and all I had to do was message my contact and say, hey, he's coughing a bit. I think I should take him to the vet. She says, make the appointment. Tell me when you do it. Whatever he needs. And so I went in, and when the vet says we want to do this in this med, we want to do this in this, I'm really confident in saying, yes, go for it. Cupids will support it. We're mostly as a foster family, and one of the other things I really like about Cupids and a lot of small rescues is that we have the most influence over who adopts our foster dogs.
Nice.
So once somebody meets him or decides, they want my foster dog, there's a group of our volunteers who vet the applications. So they double check that everything looks on the level, okay, that it's somebody that we would adopt to, that it's safe, for the dog, at least on a basic level. So once they've done that, they send me the app. I get to review it, and I get to call the adopter and say, hey, let me tell you about Dundee. That's my current foster. He's a great dog, and you want to adopt him. Why? And we can talk about that. And then I go from there and set up a meet and greet. We can go meet somewhere. If they have other dogs, we'll set up some time for that. And then if things go well, they have the option to do a sleepover, which is like a kind of a short term. We sign all the paperwork, and I just kind of hold it. So I hold the adoption paperwork. We sign a special agreement. So he can stay there for, anywhere up to about 3 to 5 days. Nice. And that gives the family and him a chance to see, you know, are we vibing as much as we think we are? Are we the right match? And if the family calls me up a day or two later and says, you know what, he's great, but he's not for us, I just go pick him up, bring him back home. You know, we shred up the contract and we move on and see if there's another dog that's a better fit. And the opposite of that is true. If I get a sense that maybe it's not a good fit, or I'm seeing things that I'm concerned of, I'm empowered to say, you know what, let's put the brakes on this. I don't think this is the right match.
Exactly.
And then I can go back and say, you know what, they're a nice family, they're fine, but the dogs didn't quite get along the way I'd like, or, you know, I don't think that he would do well in this environment. My current foster is pretty easygoing, but I've had some that had really particular needs. And so it's really good to be able to say, you know what, you're great, it's not you, but they have some special needs, and we need to make sure they have it so that the next move they make is the last one. I think Alex and we are getting to about 40, maybe 42 over the years. I'll own it. One of those is a litter of puppies. So, you know, I get lots of numbers on that. It was a mama plus 9, but considering I cleaned up after on mama plus 9 puppies, I think I'll count it. But most of the time it's been 1s and 2s. You know, my spouse and I we've done pretty much the whole gamut. We've done little dogs, big dogs, dogs that love other dogs that do not like other dogs. You know, older, younger. We've done a few puppies. That's not usually our flavor, but we'll do that when the call comes for it. You know, we've worked with behavioral needs dogs. I used to joke for a long time, give me a little young adult dog that's got sassy behaviors. That's kind of my niche, my kryptonite there. Give me that. Let me figure them out. Like find what they need. And that's a good segue too. That's another thing that Canine Cupid does support and provide is training. So if a dog needs some specialized training, we've got several trainers we work with, and they will back you. If I say, hey, this is more than I can handle, I need help. I need someone else's eyes on this dog. They're like, okay, here's who you're calling. You're going to do some training. We're going to see what they say. You know, if I got a dog that's way more energy than I can burn out on my own, I've been on the reverse of this. Hey, I really need someone to come and help take somebody for a walk in the middle of the day because I got to get some work done, and they're going stir crazy. I'll often tell people that hounds are my first love. People use the phrase like soul dog or heart dog sometimes, and my Sadie was that for me. It was the first dog I adopted as an adult. It was the first pet my spouse and I adopted together. You know, she had some challenges. She was a wonderful dog in many ways, but she was terrified of many things. And so much good has come from Sadie being in my life. So Sadie was the reason that I met one of my closest friends who is a dog trainer and who has trained every dog that I have ever owned myself.
Nice. And
including helped with a lot of my fosters and rescue dogs. You know, Sadie was at one point the eldest of our 4 dogs. We've had 4 at one point. And she was a wonderful sibling. She was my tester dog when I didn't know if another dog would do well or if a dog was being a little awkward when they would meet. She was my go-to because she just rolled with it.
Nice.
You know, she was pretty perfect for us. And so it started from there. We realized, like, she's so good. Why wouldn't we share that? She loves other dogs. One of the only dogs I've ever confidently taken to a dog park. That's usually not something I jive with because that makes me nervous. So as the human, I'm like, okay, if I'm nervous about it, we're just going to pass. You know, it works for some folks, but Sadie loved it. And so when I'd watch her with other dogs, I'd say, this is something we can share. How can we share that? And we figured out that lots of places do fostering. And I said, Sadie would make an excellent foster parent. She was a mama before she came to live with us. She's got the instincts. And she was that all the way up until the end. So a lot of dogs benefited from her being on Earth, and even more so I did. She was my girl. People who know me will laugh when I say I like them spicy. So when you say problems, I think, yay. Like, I get kind of excited for the challenge and the interest. You know, I think the tricky one for us, we do all breeds. So I know I told you, like, hounds are my first love, but I adore pit bulls, and I love, like, little scruffy, cranky Chihuahua types. Those are kind of both. The pit bulls are my thing for a different reason. And the Chihuahuas are kind of my kryptonite because I appreciate the spirit. It's like, you spicy, I like it. Like, come bring your spice over here. So I think, you know, I think for me, it's the ones that have really high anxiety, and it comes out in behaviors that look scary to other people. And so it's always a challenge to me to figure out, how can I help this dog feel better? Is that training? Is that environmental? Is it medication? Sometimes it's a combination of all those things. And it's really important to be open to that. And then also, how can I show them off in their best light? Because I have never come across a dog that didn't have some good qualities. Like, there may be some in the world. I'm not saying there's no dog in the world that's totally antisocial. I'm sure it's existed. But the vast majority of dogs, even ones with behavioral concerns, there's a reason for it. And there's usually a modification we can make to make their quality of life good and the people around them. And so for me, it's a dog that acts really intense when they're on the leash and they see another dog. That's going to be a tough sell for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. I understand it. Like, you want to have a nice walk with your dog. You don't want to feel like you have an alligator on the end of the leash pulling you along, right? And, so how do we help that dog feel better? How do we practice those skills? And how do we show off, like, when I get them back home, they curl up on the couch and they are the best. Or they are wonderful with every human they meet, including little kids. Like, a lot of times we see dogs that maybe they don't do great with other dogs, but they're wonderful with people, or they're great with kids, or they are the gentlest souls, or they are super smart and can do almost any trick. So how do we show them in the best light? Okay. So for me, I think it's the ones where their public-facing behavior is challenging, and someone might look and be like, what is up with that dog? And I'm like, nothing's up with that dog. That dog has had a rough go, and they need some grace. Exactly. So let me show you what happens when you give them a little grace. They're pretty fantastic. So nice. That's kind of, but I see it as a challenge, and most of the time it's a good one.
Oh, good answer.
And there's always the basic needs. So any living thing, what do they need? It seems pretty basic. They need food. There's always a lot of discussion about, what do I feed my dog? Do I feed my dog? Do I home make their food? Do I feed them kibble or not? Do I do puzzle games, or do I just give it to them in a bowl? Dogs are individuals. Sometimes they like different things. My dogs at home, I do a combo. They get their food in a puzzle. I mostly feed kibble because I trust and understand that the nutrition is a little more balanced than, say, what I can do myself. There are lots of people whose dogs do beautifully on homemade food or other combinations. To me, it's more important that you make sure they're getting adequate nutrition and they're getting enough food. That's way more important. I'm not sitting here in judgment of anyone who says, hey, I have to buy a less expensive food or a more expensive one. That's a personal choice. It's kind of like the difference between, hey, I feed my kids chicken nuggets or I don't. I mean, fed is the important thing, right? Exactly. So, food, water, the basics. Safety is a big one, especially for dogs with a rescue history, because a lot of times they've had some trauma. Mm-hmm. So even if it's a matter of they just got lost, a lot of dogs come in to Matic and other shelters because they've been lost or loose somewhere, and they get picked up and brought in, and their owners either can't or don't come and find them. And so, the staff there works so hard, but a shelter is a big, loud environment. It's stressful. So a dog that comes home to us out of a shelter, I always tell my kids, my spouse and I know this, we always assume it's going to take them a few days up to a few weeks to settle down and to feel better. And if they are not feeling real cuddly, if they're a little cranky in that time, if they're not, if they're droopy, like, all of that is just them trying to slough off that stress. And, we have to give them space and grace and patience. And if they bounce back quicker, that's good. All the more power to them, but we shouldn't expect it of them. We have to give them space to feel better.
Cool.
Well, I think, anyone who is interested or likes spending time with dogs, there's a ton of ways to volunteer in those areas. You can look at your local shelter. Many of them, including Matic, have great dog walking and socialization programs. Rescues are always looking for volunteers. We have several volunteers that don't have dogs of their own for a variety of reasons, but they come to events. They will come and, for example, if I couldn't go to an event, but my foster dog would be a good fit, they'll come and take them for me and show them off. They'll help out with deliveries. They'll help out doing PR. They'll help out in a variety of ways. So if someone really likes a dog, even if they don't have one or maybe they're not ready for that step, there's great ways that you can do it. And the bonus is you get to spend time with some great animals and some pretty cool people. Our organization is really solid, and we have a lot of talented people in there, and they bring their talents to that organization, and I'm just really proud to be part of it. So I say come and join us if you're interested, or look to wherever your closest shelter or rescue is and get involved with them if you believe in their mission. There's ways that you can help out, and you can pretty much figure out a way to share your talents with them.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dog Lovers Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our friends and experts at Canine Cupid. May your days be filled with wagging tails and wet noses.